Do You Feel Them Crawling? By Sir Ronick. I have trouble sleeping at night. And no, I don't have insomnia or sleep apnea or any other sleeping disorder. Let's start at the beginning. I graduated from university a year ago with a degree in business administration and found myself a decent apartment near my first job. The job paid fairly well, and so I was able to afford relatively nice furniture for my apartment. Despite all of my brand new furniture and linens, after the first few weeks in my apartment, I started to feel small, ticklish sensations running up and down my legs in bed. Once I paid a bit more attention to them, I realized they must have been bed bugs. I was disgusted. And so I decided to sleep on my couch and do some research onto how to get rid of them in the morning. I read online that the best way to get rid of bed bugs is to clean all the sheets on your bed and then scrub and vacuum the mattress and bed frame. When I got home from work, I spent hours going through each of these steps, making sure to do everything thoroughly to get rid of the insects. Thankfully, it seemed to work, as for the next month I had no insects scuttling along my body at night. However, as I was laying in bed about 5 weeks after I had scoured my bed clean, I felt something run along my hand. "Damn, these stupid bugs," I muttered to myself, as I angrily got out of bed and went off to the couch for the second time. In the morning, I called a pest control company and they came and fumigated my bedroom. The bugs never stopped coming back. Over the better part of a year, I kept trying different things to get the bugs to leave for good. I called 3 different pest control companies, bought a new bed and linens, and even moved to a different apartment without bringing any of my old furniture with me. But no matter what I did, they always came back with time. As one might imagine, I have had many nightmares involving these bugs. There were nightmares where I would wake up and I would be absolutely covered in bugs from head to toe. They were of all different shapes, sizes, and numbers of little legs. I was never able to move in any of these dreams, and the bugs would always inevitably make their way into my eyes and mouth, with there being nothing I could do about it. There were other dreams, where I would be running through the jungle, trying to get away from some unknown creature behind me. I would end up colliding with multiple spiderwebs and feel huge tarantulas and other insects working their way up my legs and back as I ran. However, the most prevalent nightmare that I had was more hellish. It would always start with me slowly waking up on a hard stone floor. I would open my eyes and be met with a very large and cavernous space lit by many small fires scattered across the cavern's rocky outcroppings. Looking down, I saw my body, or what remained of it. My arms and legs were mostly eaten away with just scraps of skin, tendon, and bone left on them. The rest of my body was heavily decomposed, with my chest torn open in several places. There were bugs crawling all over my ruined body. They ran up and down the bones of my legs and arms and flowed freely in and out of the gaping wounds in my chest. Terrified, I would attempt to brush them away and get up and flee. However, my mutilated body always failed me. And after several minutes of struggle, I would resign myself to laying there against the rocky outcropping behind me. I always woke up right after I closed my eyes in defeat, and without fail I would need to brush several bugs off me when I awoke. However, everything, including these dreams, started to change a few weeks ago. Over the past year, during the periods where I had the bug problems, I only ever felt 2 or 3 at a time. However, one recent night I woke up from one of my bug-induced nightmares and felt dozens of bugs all over my body. I jumped out of bed, attempting to brush them off my skin as quickly as I could. I turned on the light to see how bad the infestation had gotten, and I froze. there wasn't a single bug in sight. Come to think of it, I had never actually seen any of the bugs I had been dealing with in the past. It hadn't come to my attention before because there were only ever a couple, and I assumed they had just crawled away once I turned on the light. But as I stood there that night, there was something about having so many bugs crawling over me and then looking to see my bed completely free of vermin that made me break out in a cold sweat that I hadn't felt before. Was I going crazy? I couldn't be. I had been feeling bugs in my bed for almost a year, and neither I nor my family had ever had any serious mental problems before. I went off to sleep on the couch that night, but something told me not to make any calls to my extermination companies. It just kept getting worse from there. Every night I went to sleep, I would wake up with tens, no, hundreds of bugs covering my skin. And every night, when I turned on the light, there were no bugs to be seen. The dreams began to escalate as well. When I woke up in that hellish cavern devoid of any natural light, I would not escape back to the real world so easily. I would often feel like I lay there suffering in my ravaged and decaying body for hours or even days. I was no longer alone in the cavern either. Looking around at the rocky terrain covered in fire and insects, I saw the remains of several other unfortunate souls, all of which were almost completely eaten away. However, each of these bodies had an intact, perfect head. When I had my first incredibly long dream in the cavern, I sat against the rock wall that I woke up against for what must have been 2 days or more. Within that time, I had somehow almost gotten used to the incessant crawling of bugs on and in my body, and I grew restless. I wanted to do something, anything at all, and so I decided that I would try to talk. When I tried to speak at first, I broke out in a coughing fit due to the extreme dryness in my throat. When I finally stopped coughing, I felt a change in the atmosphere in the cavern. The best way I can describe it is like when you let out a sneeze or cough while sitting in a quiet auditorium. Nobody says anything about it, but you can almost feel their eyes on you, looking to see who disturbed the quiet of the space. Despite this feeling, I decided to call out to one of the bodies that was lying on the ground. "Hey, Bonesy over there. Yeah, you. How's it going?" It may sound like a super childish way to talk, but I wasn't sure that I was the only living being in that place, and it felt silly to talk as if I was talking to a real person. All my fake joviality quickly turned to fear as I continued to look at the body. Its head incredibly slowly turned to face me. It was at that moment when I realized that these bodies, these things, were still alive. I would have screamed in terror, but I saw the look of true pain that resided behind those large, tear-filled green eyes. This skeleton, this woman, had been down here for God knows how long, and all she could do was lie there in silence as bugs crawled all over what used to be her body. We gazed at each other for what felt like an eternity, and then I awoke in my bed, crying my eyes out and covered in hundreds of bugs that I could not see. I wish with all my heart that I could say that was the end of it. But I had just had a long string of really bad nightmares and a very strange pest problem. But that wasn't the end of it. I have had the same dream every night. And every night it feels like my stay in that place gets a few hours longer. I swear, when I wake up, I am covered in thousands of bugs now, and every time I get out of bed, they still vanish completely. I am starting to deteriorate physically too. I stopped going to work a week ago, and I can barely function. Despite the eternity I feel lying in that cavern every night, I only ever seem to get a few, 2 hours of sleep. And all I see of my right foot now is a mangled and bloody bone. I know now that I am being drawn into this hell, covered in bugs and the bodies of the damned. Each night now is getting longer by the week, and it is only a matter of time before I join the other lonely, abandoned bodies in that cavern. I have come to grips with the reality that the other mutilated people that I see every night are real people just like me, eaten away by the bugs, left to rot while still cursed to live, with nothing they can do but cry. So, I have one question to ask you before I am lost to the bugs forever. Do you feel them crawling? Hello everyone, the Archivist here. I gotta say, recording that one did actually give me a few shivers. I could really feel the bugs crawling over me. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and if you did, make sure you're following the channel. And yeah, thank you again for your support. Sleep well.